Okay, the fourth and final printing process that we're going to discuss as part of this Section 5 in Communication Systems is the gravure printing process. And so the gravure printing process is printing from a sunken surface. So as compared to lithography, which is printing from a smooth surface, or relief printing, which is printing from a raised surface, we have gravure printing, which is printing from a sunken surface. In this case, as kind of similar with lithography, that we have a cylinder that we use, and it's very durable, and it can be used for millions of copies. The image quality can be very, very good. You get a very high accuracy prints made, and this method is used for doing magazines or catalogs or newspaper supplements. So kind of the higher quality prints and special advertisements that you find in newspapers, we could use the gravure printing process for that. So in this case, the cylinder that is used in the gravure printing process is made out of steel or aluminum and typically coated with copper. For this case, it is a very expensive process, and you come back to that the cylinder that's used, again, it's a sunken surface, so it's engraved, the image is engraved into the cylinder. This steel or aluminum cylinder that has a copper coating on it, but then once the print is done, so let's say if it's used in some kind of supplement in a newspaper, JCPenney is running an advertisement and they use this for this week's in the paper, but once the run is done, then that cylinder, you can't reuse the cylinder, it's done. And so it's costly in itself, and you can't reuse it for a different type of print. Now you could print the same thing over and over again, but you can't change the design on it, and so that's where it can be costly. In this case, small cells are cut or etched into the surface. Traditionally, in the past, it was done by hand, and it can be done using either the chemical etching process with acid, or more commonly now, a direct transfer method is used where we expose the cylinder and the image is etched into it. And that's kind of the more modern, but then the most modern is going to be actually used in a digital process and a machine hooked up to a computer that sends the digital design made in something like InDesign is going to be sent directly to the machine, and the machine is going to etch it in using a very fine and very exact process. So again, it can be very high quality. You can see there that you can have up to 22,000 cells per square inch. So it's a very, very exact process, which is why you can get a great quality image when we're done. So here's an example of electronic engraving process that I just described. In this case, the copy is placed on an electronic scanner, and the ink cells are cut mechanically using a diamond cutting tool. So once again, it can be very expensive, but very accurate. And so one particular type of gravure printing is called Intaglio printing, and this is what was referenced to in the video, the first video that you saw in this section. So again, it's printing from a sunken surface, but instead of cells being used like we just saw, in this case lines are used. It's a very high quality process, and what is currently used in the process for developing for money, stamps, and stocks, the design for those is made using the Intaglio process. As you look in your book, and I encourage you to look in your book at some of the pictures on there, as it demonstrates, early on this was done by hand. I mean, the design for the money, the design for stamps, those were all done by hand. Now again, we're going to use a computer technology to do that, but it's a very meticulous process, but it creates a very nice quality print. So again, this is our final printing process. We're talking about gravure printing, which is printing from a sunken surface.